There are moments your brain swears it's seen before. Not in a dream, not in a memory, just a sudden, suffocating certainty that you've already lived this exact second. But try to trace it, and it's gone. No past, no proof, just the feeling that it happened. We call it déjà vu, but it's more than a glitch. It's a fracture in your sense of time, a flicker that forces you to question what's real and what your brain wants you to believe. Because if your mind can invent a moment this vivid, how many of your memories were never real to begin with? You walk into a room. You've never been there before. And yet, something about the light, the air, the shape of the silence, it all feels right, like a scene you've already lived. But when you try to place the memory, there's nothing, no moment, no story, just the certainty that this isn't new. It happens to nearly everyone, and it happens randomly, while walking into a store, hearing someone's voice, watching someone move in a way that just feels familiar. It peaks in youth, shows up more under stress, fatigue, or anxiety. We still don't fully understand why, and despite decades of research, we can't even force it to happen in a lab. Déjà vu makes you feel like you've remembered something, but what it's really doing is fooling you. It's not memory you're accessing, it's emotion, a flicker of familiarity triggered by emotional pattern recognition. Your brain notices a mood, a shape, a rhythm, something vague and internal, and then backfills a fake memory to match the feeling.
He'd gone on a hunting trip for the first time. He'd never been on this particular trip before, and he felt like he had done this before. As he was boarding the plane, he felt like he'd done this exact thing before. He felt he had sat in that very seat on that very plane before. He felt that those very passengers surrounding him were there before, and they were wearing those same clothes. And he also felt he knew that the flight attendant was about to approach him, and not only that, but he knew what she was going to say.
And because your brain desperately wants the world to make sense, it hands you a false moment just convincing enough to believe. That's what déjà vu is, an emotional echo dressed up as a fact, and it happens in an instant. Your brain isn't trying to trick you on purpose. It's trying to protect something deeper than memory, something even more fragile, your identity. Because identity isn't built on facts, it's built on stories. And those stories rely on one illusion, that you understand where you've been. When a moment like déjà vu disrupts that illusion, your brain rushes to patch the hole. It invents a fake past just convincing enough to calm you down. A half-second rewrite, a flash of false familiarity, and just like that, the feeling becomes real.
Now normally, the contents of the novel you have to access page by page. If you're on page 44, you don't know what's happening on page 73 because the pages are separated. The contents of each page is not available until you open that page. But sometimes, if this separating mechanism, if each page is not quite as opaque as it should be, if some of the pages are transparent, then some of the contents of page 73 filter through, and you read them on page 44.
But here's what most people never realize. The memory you think you're recalling never existed at all. It was assembled from fragments, patterns, moods, emotional templates, and glued together in real time. You didn't recall it, you invented it. Because déjà vu isn't about the past, it's about the present. A survival reflex, part of your brain's built-in system for identity stabilization. Because if you can't tell where this moment belongs in your life story, then how do you know who you are inside it? Déjà vu is your brain faking certainty to keep you from unraveling, a quick fix, a feeling to help you move on. It's not just random, it's necessary. But what happens when the feeling is so strong, it overrides the truth entirely? What happens when your brain chooses the fake memory over the real one? Your senses are always a few steps ahead of you. Before you realize you've seen something, your brain has already processed it. Before you feel an emotion, your body has already started reacting. This is where déjà vu begins, not in memory, but in timing. What you experience as the present is really your brain stitching together information from slightly different moments. Light enters the eyes, sound enters the ears, emotions stir in the body, but they don't arrive at the same time, and they don't get processed at the same speed. So your brain adjusts. It smooths things out. It pretends everything happened at once, even when it didn't. But sometimes that process breaks. There's a lag, a glitch. You process the same moment twice, once unconsciously and then again consciously. That's when it hits. The weird feeling, the familiarity, the I swear I've already seen this, because in a way, you have.
The sense that what you're experiencing is so familiar and like something that you've experienced previously is merely that the neurons that were active in one circumstance are now becoming active in the same circumstance again.
Not in a dream, not in the past, but a split second ago before you even noticed. This is called sensory desynchronization. It's when your brain picks up an experience, processes part of it too early, and then feeds it back to you as if it already happened. That's why déjà vu feels true, because you really did experience it once already, just not in the way you think. But here's where it gets more unsettling. Your brain doesn't just notice the delay, it tries to fix it. This is known as timeline correction, a built-in mechanism that makes sure your experiences feel continuous, even when they aren't. Your mind doesn't like uncertainty. It doesn't want to feel like something glitched. So instead of showing you the error, it rewrites the moment and pretends it was always meant to happen this way. That means the moment you think you're remembering is really just a memory of your brain correcting itself. Think about that. You didn't go back in time. You didn't uncover a forgotten experience. You just got stuck inside the system your brain uses to hold reality together. Déjà vu is a side effect, the echo left behind when the patch doesn't quite work.
Memories that can be elicited by moving into an environment that resembles something that we've already experienced. So we don't have to invoke parallel universes, we don't have to invoke the multiverse in order to explain most déjà vu.
And yet, that echo feels real, too real, because the emotional part of your brain doesn't know it was a glitch. It only knows that something feels strangely familiar. This is where subconscious reconstruction takes over. The moment déjà vu hits, your mind starts trying to explain it, not logically, but emotionally. You feel like you've been here before, so your brain begins stitching together fake details to fill in the gaps. It starts building a memory that never happened, just to make the feeling make sense. And it does it without your permission. All it takes is one flicker, one desynchronized moment, and your brain creates a false reality to calm itself down, because the alternative is chaos. So here's what déjà vu really is. It's not a supernatural signal. It's not a glitch in the universe. It's a correction that doesn't quite land. A repair job, a cover-up. Your brain lagged for half a second and then gaslit itself into believing the moment had already happened. And in that half second, something slipped through. Something that wasn't supposed to feel real, but did. But what if these glitches aren't just accidents? What if they're your brain's last line of defense? A way to protect you from something far more disturbing? You don't want the truth. Not all of it. Not all the time. You want to feel safe. You want the world to feel familiar, predictable, explainable. So when something slips, when reality stutters, when time folds in on itself, your brain doesn't investigate. It smooths it over. It wraps the moment in emotion, seals it with logic, and tells you it's fine. You've been here before. That's the lie. Déjà vu is your brain's way of regulating panic without your permission. When something doesn't make sense, when the timeline breaks or your senses misfire, your brain doesn't show you the error. It protects you from it. It creates a sensation of familiarity and drops it over the moment like a warm blanket. You think you're remembering, but you're really being calmed down. Because familiarity is powerful. We trust it, even when it makes no sense.
Maybe upon visiting the Louvre for the first time, the reason you experience déjà vu is because you're failing to recall the fact that you saw those same scenes in the movie The Da Vinci Code years ago. And that's responsible for this feeling of déjà vu.
It's how we decide what's safe and what's dangerous. It's why you'll sit in the same chair every day, walk the same street, replay the same song. even if you don't like it anymore. Familiarity signals control, and déjà vu hijacks that system. It gives you the illusion of control at the exact moment you're starting to lose it. And here's where it gets a bit deeper. If déjà vu can make you feel calm in the middle of a glitch, what else can your brain fabricate just to make you feel okay? This is where self-deception enters the picture. The human mind doesn't just lie when it's confused. It lies when the truth is too painful. It lies to keep you emotionally functional. You forget arguments. You rewrite breakups. You downplay things you've done, or things done to you, because memory isn't just about accuracy. It's about survival. And déjà vu is proof. It shows us that our emotional need to feel safe is stronger than our logical need to be accurate. That when something threatens the story we tell ourselves about our life, our brain would rather invent a false memory than let that story fall apart. This is called false safety, and it's terrifyingly common. Not just with déjà vu, but with the way we process trauma, guilt, and shame. We hide entire truths about ourselves. We edit out discomfort, and the more we do it, the easier it becomes. Déjà vu is the symptom, not the disease. It shows you how easily your brain will trick you, not out of malice, but out of love, out of fear, out of the need to keep you emotionally upright when reality starts to tilt.
Déjà vu results from an interruption of a perceptual process, so that it splits into a past as well as another current experience.
And what makes it worse is that it feels real. Once the feeling hits, your brain fills in details to justify it. You convince yourself you've been here before, and then start building a fake narrative around that belief. You invent memories to match emotions you don't understand. That's emotional regulation through fiction. Because if something feels familiar, it must be safe. And if it feels safe, it must be true. So your brain clings to that feeling, even when it's wrong, even when it means rewriting your reality. And if it can do that in one moment, it can do it across your entire life. How many things do you think you remember just because your brain needed you to feel okay? How many parts of your identity are built on feelings that were never real in the first place? You don't remember the past, you recreate it. And every time you do, something gets lost, something gets added, something gets rearranged. But if memory can be altered that easily, what even is memory? You think memory is a recording, something solid, stored away, untouched and waiting to be replayed. But memory isn't stored, it's rebuilt. Every time you try to remember, you're not pressing play. You're rewriting the scene from scratch, using whatever pieces are still available.
The hippocampus consolidates and retrieves memories. It takes present moment experience and turns it into memories that we can then retrieve. And because memory is the way we usually access the past, it becomes a pretty simple explanation to say that déjà vu involves a kind of misfiring or an unusual activation of memory mechanisms, because that's where our sense of the past is to be found.
And sometimes those pieces aren't facts, they're emotions, they're fragments, they're guesses. That's why déjà vu matters. It's not just a weird glitch, it's proof that your memory system was never built for accuracy. It was built for belief. Your brain doesn't want the truth. It wants something that fits. It wants a story you can live with. This is called narrative identity, the idea that your sense of self isn't just made up of what happened, but how you remember what happened, and how you feel about what happened. So if your memory shifts, you shift with it. It's why you can misremember conversations or forget entire details until someone reminds you. It's why two people can live through the same moment and walk away with completely different stories, both of them convinced they're right, because they are, to them. That's the danger of false confidence, when you trust your memory not because it's accurate, but because it feels accurate. Déjà vu is a tiny version of that, a moment that feels so real you don't question it. You don't stop and ask if it makes sense. You just accept it, because you've been trained to believe your own mind, to think that if something feels familiar, it must be true, and if it triggers emotion, it must be important.
So in other words, déjà vu is probably simply a fragment of our brain eliciting memories and fragments of previous situations.
But your memory can't tell the difference between a real flashback and a reconstructed one, between something that happened and something your brain needed to believe. This is why people misremember crimes. It's why witnesses get things wrong. It's why you can feel nostalgic for a place you never visited, or feel grief for a moment that never happened. Because your brain is not a historian, it's a storyteller, and the stories aren't fixed, they're alive, which means they're vulnerable. All it takes is one emotion, one cue, one flicker of déjà vu, and suddenly your past has changed shape. You don't notice it. You just live with the new version like it's always been that way. This is memory reconstruction, and it's happening all the time. Even now, as you listen, your brain is reshaping the way you'll remember this video. You won't remember the exact words. You'll remember how it made you feel. You'll remember a moment that stood out, or one you think stood out. And then you'll carry that memory forward as part of who you are. And maybe that's the real danger. Because if you can't fully trust your memory, and you can't tell when it's been altered, then how much of your identity is real? How many pieces of your personality were shaped by things that never truly happened, not the way you remember them? This isn't about déjà vu anymore. It's about how we decide what's true and who we think we are. You live your life believing the past is solid, but the more you look at it, the more it shifts. You expect the future to surprise you, but what if the past is doing the same? So if your memory isn't real, if your timeline can be edited at any moment, then how do you know the story you're living is even yours? Déjà vu is a glitch, but it's also a message. It tells you that your brain is editing your past without your permission, that the person you think you've always been might not be the person you actually are. And for most people, that's terrifying. Because if memory can lie, if the moments that shaped you can be rewritten, then what are you left with? What can you trust? Here's the truth. You trust what feels real. You follow the story that gives you comfort. You hold on to the memories that support who you want to be, and quietly ignore the ones that don't. You don't do this because you're weak. You do it because you're human. This is what déjà vu reveals. Not just a brain glitch, but a blueprint. A window into how your mind handles fear, dissonance, confusion. It doesn't show you reality. It shows you how badly you need one. Because in the absence of certainty, your brain fills in the gaps. It invents meaning. It tells you a story, and you believe it because it feels safe. That's what memory is. Not truth, but protection. And if your brain can do all of that to protect you from a moment of confusion, imagine what it's willing to do to protect you from guilt, from shame, from fear, from the truth. If this video challenged your thinking, check out the full source list in the description. Subscribe if you haven't already, and give the video a cheeky like. It really helps us out. And obviously, we're not here to tell you what to believe. We're here to show you just how easily belief can be constructed. Because déjà vu? It's just one crack in the human psyche. But what happens when a human psyche is weaponized? When it's no longer a manipulation of memories, but a manipulation of other people with the darkest intentions? What happens when it's someone with an absolutely terrifying psychopathic personality? Click here to dive into the minds of some of the world's most notorious psychopaths. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.